What's up, guys? It's Dominique, aka That Therapist. Let me make a few adjustments. Oh, shoot. All right, cool. Awesome. There we go. All right, so we're doing a little something different, which actually works out really nicely. So, next month is Men's Health Month anyway. So, this is a cool transition into Men's Health Month. Um, but just to give you a little background before we get started, I'm Dominique, aka That Therapist. I'm the lead clinician and CEO for a group practice known as Yellow Bird Counseling. So, what we do in general, of course, we provide individual, families, couple, and group therapy virtually and in person throughout the state of Alabama, but we also service as well. So if you live in Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, or Florida, then we can get you set up. But we wanted to start this, we wanted to provide this as a group, but we decided to do it as a live, just so Black males could get comfortable with the idea of therapy and reasons that as a Black male, you or someone you know may be interested or need to be in therapy. So definitely please share this live, share this live, share this live. And thank you for those of you that are watching on the replay. Thank you for those of you that are sharing. But of course, I'm not a Black male, so I can't do this by myself. So I have, of course, Yellow Bird's very own Jason Perry, who is going to be assisting me with facilitating this discussion about mental health and just how Black males may have to maneuver society so they can appear not to be quote unquote threatening, which is very detrimental. That was actually the inspiration for this group. I have a lot of Black male clients who express how they're not able to do certain things, implement certain boundaries because people may feel threatened by their Black male presence, which of course I think that's, real crazy that society would treat a Black male like that for trying to do something as healthy as proper communication, implementing boundaries, asking for help when needed. But their outward presentation sometimes causes people's implicit bias or microaggressions to be activated, not of any fault of the Black male, but because of those people's inability to work on their own stuff, their own biases that they have. So because of that, Black males take a hit to their mental health based on how society sees them. So we're going to talk about how to navigate that. We're going to talk about how to manage and cope with that and things that Black males can do in order to still implement appropriate boundaries and appropriate communication and can feel comfortable with that. So without further ado, let me bring on Yellow Bird's very own Black male therapist, might I add.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, good morning. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Good. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for being present. I even got my Therapy is Gangsta shirt on.
I'm wearing my shirt too.
Yes, look at that. Progress of perfection. Therapy is Gangsta. Yeah. Y'all can go to yellowbirdcounseling.com and take a look at the swag shop or the YBC brand shop. We're in the process of transitioning between names, but it should be swag shop. And you know what? The motivation behind this shirt, actually, our hip hop artist Prodigy actually said that. Prodigy started being kind of open about his own experiences with mental health and therapy. So Prodigy was like, therapy is gangster. So I'm like, there you go, right there.
Exactly.
But it really is. It really is. I think people don't understand that therapy is actually hard work, and it actually does take a lot of strength to be able to do. So I guess that would be a good place to start. Tell us kind of, as you know, as a Black male and probably interacting a lot with other Black males, what are some of the stigmas that Black men may have about seeking help or going to therapy?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start because being on the college campus, working on the college campus, actually even transitioning from being a student to being a professional that serves Black males, Black women of color, Hispanic males, Hispanic women of color. We have these conversations frequently because it's just like the many barriers we see for college students. Mental health is one of those things, and it's so interconnected with their success as a student that it's something that I'm very, very passionate about. Um, Even when choosing a master's program, I wanted to kind of key in on what are some of the things that are hindering our students the most, or what are some of the things that I find to be most important, like within the community, that could really make a difference. So when I think about the stigmas about mental health, I really had to confront those things myself um, before even starting my journey as becoming a counselor and pursuing a master's program. I think just help seeking in general, being vulnerable. I think it all stems around that vulnerability, that there's something that I cannot do, that I have to admit to someone I need help. That could be very, very difficult. And, I think we could have a long conversation about what perpetuated that, what instilled in me that I have to do everything myself, or I have to be perfect at everything, or I have to figure everything out. That's where it really stemmed from. And so on my own personal journey, the first thing was, how can I put that aside and understand that it's okay to ask for help? And then how could I build trust in the people that I'm surrounded with to tell them I need help? And how can I do that? This is the important thing. How can I do that before I'm way too far gone, and that I'm in full crisis mode, or this problem that I have? So just like with students, how do we get them to tell us, "Hey, I need some help," before they're failing all their classes and the drop date is next week? And so those are the things that I think kind of built that stigma. Was um, at some point being instilled in us that I got to figure out how to be independent, or be independent in the sense of I need to figure it out on my own when I have the resources around me to help. But I think another big stigma is like, where do we start? And I think that's also valid for a lot of people. Is, okay, I know I need help. Well, where do I start? And that's why I think platforms like this is so important, because we open that door for each other. I could go to a friend, or a friend could come to me and say, "Have you heard about Yellowbird?" Students on campus, they can say, "Counseling services is free." That's the perfect resource to introduce you to counseling and what counseling looks like. It's a free resource, and you can kind of dip your toe into this world that's very, very important. And so, yeah, and I will, of course, throw that question back to you as well. Like this, even I would be curious to see what stigmas do you that come up from you, from your own personal experience and from your professional experience in working with Black males.
Well, and you know what? I don't really, because the Black males that come to me, they're already in. They've already bought into, like, yeah, therapy. I need to talk to somebody. So they've already bought into it. So we'll talk a little bit later about the struggles that those Black men experience in implementing the things that we talk about in therapy. But as opposed to like social life would be more of where I see some pushback or some resistance from Black males as it relates to going to therapy. They're like, no, ain't nothing wrong with me, or they, just really invalidating real symptoms of depression. Like, is it really depression, or is it like you just need to get out of bed and, do what you need to do, or you just being lazy? Right. So I'm just like, man, like some of the questions that Black males ask, I appreciate that they ask them, but it also makes me sad that these are questions, like not really having a full understanding of depression and anxiety and thinking that it means that they're weak or something that they can will themselves out of. When, things like epigenetics aren't being taken into consideration, like us as Black people in general, we come from a long line of abuse, dehumanization, racism that is woven into our DNA. So we are going to experience and exhibit symptoms of depression and anxiety and ACEs, like different ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences that affect our health. So people try to, I won't just say people, but Black males, I think they don't really understand the full impact of that trauma, whether it is intentional trauma or unintentional, which, a lot of the trauma that us as Black people experience within our families and within our communities, a lot of time is just behavior that we learned that got passed down, and we don't even realize how detrimental it could be, or that it is a traumatic behavior, So kind of like what you were saying in the beginning about things that were just instilled in you, to make you not feel that comfortable with asking for help, or make asking for help seem like it's a weakness or something like that. So tell us, kind of from your experience, what are some of those behaviors that can perpetuate that thought process in Black males?
I think it's the nature of masculinity and how it's portrayed in our families, how it's depicted in media or on television or in movies, really creating in you a response to adversity, and really trying to romanticize resilience in a way that might be unhealthy. And I think the role of that, like how were you responded to when you faced adversity, even as a child, from the stubbing your toe to just any situation, any falling down and being told to to get up and brush it off because you're a man, and things like that. Those are the things that I think are just very natural to see. And I think for me, being the youngest, being my mom's favorite, I think it made my older siblings a little bit more tougher on me in that sense, to and try to make me be like a man in response to certain situations. I think that can be very dangerous, especially as an athlete too, because as athletes, it's pushed even more. We actually even celebrate pushing ourselves past those limits that can be unhealthy for you or dangerous for you, or those conditions that could be unhealthy for you and dangerous for you. And as you get older, those mentalities, I think about my own self, my own health struggles throughout this year, those mentalities that have, challenged me to push myself further than what my body wants me to. I think those things can be romanticized. I've often said to people that there's like this feeling going around, especially in today, that busyness seems to equate to success, or at least that's how it feels depicted. And it feels like if I'm not, working all day and doing my own thing on the side at night, and doing this on the side and doing that, and posting this and posting that, it feels like that looks like success, and it feels like we're not keeping up. Whether it be our friends getting into PhD programs, buying houses, getting married, doing this business, getting these jobs. Those are the things that I feel like challenge us, that makes us feel like, well, am I behind in this or behind in that? And so it's natural to have that response to want to keep up, but we don't see how that affects our mental health. And often I think that is because the symptoms that come from that, um, and whether it be anxiety or burnout or the things that come from that, um, we've been taught or conditioned to push through those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, for me, that's what I see now as I've gotten older, that I conditioned myself and trained myself to be resilient. But really, I feel like we've created this role for ourselves that, like, hey, you got to respond like this. You got to be almost supernatural in how
Mm-hmm.
you
That's what I was
approach
thinking.
things.
Superhuman.
Yes, and that's really dangerous, especially when there's no balance. When there's I'm experiencing these emotions and these feelings and these symptoms in real time, and I'm not responding to them. I'm suppressing them, and that's where I feel the challenge is, because as those of us who are in the helping profession, those of us on campus who work with students, um, there's no way to pull that out of them. We have to establish those relationships and build that trust, because for us, you really are seeing it when it's too late, and
Mhm.
not too late in that they can't get help, but too late that you've lost a semester of school, or whatever symptoms you've experienced now, they're severe, and then things where things are just unraveling. So those are the things that I'm most concerned about in a helping profession. I'm most concerned now that our people are experiencing these things, and like you said in the title of this, bringing that out of the shadows. I feel like a lot of people can resonate with the feelings that we're talking about,
Mhm.
but just sit with that, and are needing help in taking that first step.
So tell us, you talked about, just the presentation of, or lack thereof, emotions and just vulnerability,
Mhm.
uh, you know, being a black male. So tell us maybe how some of those symptoms could present, maybe how as the black male, or just, knowing, being a part of the black male population, how that may present, maybe some detriments that could come from that, like that you
Yeah.
might see. Like, I know one of them's high blood pressure, so
Hmm.
there's that.
Yes, I absolutely think, there are signs and there are ways that we can recognize that we are experiencing these emotions. I know one thing that we've discussed is, for example, being in the workplace where you feel like you have to suppress emotions, or you feel like you are experiencing microaggressions or discrimination or whatever it might be. And I think in those instances, when you experience frustration or anger or sadness or anxiety, and you live with that, and you continue to either, let's say, uh, um, self-medicate or work, push yourself even further. um, I think there are some key things, like you said, high blood pressure, but I think there are some things, some signs that you'll get early in experiencing that. And I think one of the first things is, you know being self-aware of how you're even feeling as you're getting up and preparing to go into whatever environment is causing you this distress. That was probably one of the biggest signs, when I would, in my own experience, where I knew, like I'm in an unhealthy situation right now. It's the distress I was feeling going to that place. And the whether that be anxiety, and I've talked to people who've had nerves so bad that they would throw up or they would puke before work consistently like
Mhm.
that. I mean, I can't think of a bigger sign than that, than where you can't even go into this environment without it being that bad. And so those are the things that I'm like, if you're experiencing the anxiety and that distress going into that, I think that is a huge sign to look for. And that, I think, working with Yellowbird, or working with a counselor to help decipher what's causing that is huge. And I know, for instance, talking to friends who might have experienced like micromanagement. I think that's a environment where you're constantly on edge, consistently anxious about that. Feel like every little thing that you're doing is being critiqued. I think when you have an experience where you're upset about something, about being mistreated at work, or you're even if you're upset about something that doesn't have anything to do with work, if you feel like you're in a position where you can't express that, where you can't talk to your supervisor or talk to anyone in your department about those feelings, I think that's unnatural, and I think that's unfair,
Mhm.
um, because I think um, in a sense, and I know I've had this discussion on the flip side, as far as talking with uh, Black women about this, about just expressing emotion gets you labeled as like the angry Black woman just by expressing emotion. And it's like for Black males, um, with police brutality, I think it was instilled in us very early. Like, how do you respond to the police, or how do you respond at school? I think that's the two things I remember the most in my own experience with my father was, this is what you do if you're stopped. This is what you do at school if you get in trouble, you get called to the office. Don't overreact, because of the fear, of course, the fear of what could happen with police brutality, but the fear of even you know, being sent to alternative school, or getting um, a harsh punishment because of their fear of who you are and what you might do. And I've had many conversations with other Black men, my own brothers, my own family members, friends about this, because they felt like they were unfairly punished because of of the fear a teacher had, or they feel like those people are overreacting. So my boss, or my teacher, or the bank teller, anybody, they're overreacting to my little outburst of emotion because they feel threatened. And that's unfair. We have to hold. That's unfair to put the onus on us to hold that emotion in when we're having a natural response to something.
Exactly, exactly. I'm glad you touched on that, because that is my Black males that do come to therapy. That is what we are working on navigating.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid to assert themselves in ways that is necessary on a job, like asking for simple stuff, like if I'm working on a team is going to be out, I would like to know so I know what kind of work I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fair expectation. Or if I feel as though I'm being treated unfairly, I should be like, so one of my things would be, okay, well, do you feel comfortable to talk to your boss about that?
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll say, well, no, sometimes yes, just depending on the boss.
Mm-hmm.
But when they say no, it's like, I might be perceived as threatening because
Mm-hmm.
I'm upset about something that
Yep.
I have a right to be upset about, that anybody probably would be upset about.
Mm-hmm.
So in those situations, as a Black male, have you experienced, or how have you navigated that,
Mm-hmm.
or how have you maybe advise others to navigate those type of situations? Because unfortunately, they're very common.
Yes, I think that's is very important, as in trying to, because for me, I've been in a lot of spaces where I've been not only the only male but the only black male. I've been in those spaces a lot, and I had to learn quickly how to navigate that. And I feel lucky that I had parents who were in those spaces and had to learn how to navigate that themselves, because they really did a great job of teaching us how to respond. um, I would say where I'm at today, being able to advocate for myself is the most important aspect to protecting my health. Because if I'm afraid to ask for help, if I'm afraid to express something that's been going on that is harmful to me, then I am continuously putting myself in that space where I'm anxious, where I'm burnt out, where I don't feel, 100%, um, where I'm experiencing things that are only worsening because I haven't put myself in that position to express myself. And I will say I'm lucky to be in an environment where I can do that and not fear, losing my job, or fear that I have the type of supervisors who will listen. Um, but I think more than anything, and even if that is saying, to my therapist or my counselor, how could I advocate for myself in this space? I think that's important. I think even with my mentors, and I've done this before, I really need to ask for something big. I need to ask for more money. I need to ask for help. I need to ask for something for our students. Um, how can I do this? Finding people, that one who will advocate for you, which is goes a long way too, but also finding people and saying, hey, how could I approach this? People who've been in that position before. I'm lucky at Montevallo that I found, key black males who have been on that campus and navigated that campus, who mentor me and who share with me like, hey, this is how I've been able to navigate um, this campus and be able to get my job done and to support the people I need to support. So I think that's a big thing. I think finding those outlets are so important. Not only thinking about therapy, counseling, things of that nature, but finding people in that space that you trust and that can understand the perspective that you're talking about and where you're coming from, and finding people outside of that space that can understand you. That's been so important to me. I have so many counseling friends, those that I graduated with, those that I've just met in the field, that I go to regularly to talk about these things, because the issue that we're seeing is so grand. And I think about having 200 to 300 men of color on our campus, that I'm saying I don't want to see these students go through the same things that I'm going through. Just
Mm-hmm.
like my dad, you know, struggled with high blood pressure and some heart issues and some other things that, he said, I don't want to see you go through these same things. And I can tell you this is how I got to this point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that means a lot to me, because my dad, he had um 3 stents put in his heart. And it's in witnessing that, as a young man, there was nothing more eye opening for me,
Mm-hmm.
that this is truly important. And it's not just physical. If when he talks about his experience, it's not just physical things that got him to that point. Mental health, anxiety, different things like that we are talking about today. It's the accumulation of 20, 30 years of experiencing that. And so why this is so important to me. That's why I went into this field, because people are suffering. And you talk about the suicide rate of men of color, people are suffering. And I feel like Yellowbird is a platform, along with a lot of other agencies, our universities, our businesses. I think at some point we have to, like you say, bring that out of the shadows and say, hey, this is a real problem, and we shouldn't have to keep quiet about it. And
Right.
yeah.
Exactly. So like if a student, a black male student comes to you and he's like, hey, I feel as though um I'm not maybe being treated fairly in this
Mm-hmm.
class, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe even on a job. Maybe it's a
Mm-hmm.
job, and I don't know what to do or say. How might you instruct them?
I think when we talk about like self-esteem and confidence, again, we can perpetuate that confidence. We can fake that confidence. We can act like this. Oh, I'm supposed to act this way. I'm supposed to dress this way. I'm supposed to say these things. It doesn't hide what we're really feeling and experiencing. So I think that not having the confidence to stand up to someone who has a PhD, or who has a high position, or who's coming from a different culture and might have those biases, or naturally feel like, I'm smarter than you, I'm better than you. Those are the things that I think affect our confidence to advocate for ourselves, because nobody wants to feel stupid or
Right.
embarrassed. Or that's where I think that comes from, where, and I can say that today from where I am, but even myself, as a student, I was scared to speak up on certain things and ask for help for certain things. It really took people coming to me and instilling confidence in me that got me to this point. And so I think that's one of the number one things that I want to do for my students and the clients that I see throughout my career, is instill confidence. Because we serve the students. The students are what make everything go at our university. But also, we know how detrimental things like that could be to their growth. And at some point, we have to help them get over that hump, so that they're willing to try new things and be open to new opportunities and things, and grow, and just naturally grow. So I would want to build that trust, that rapport with that student, and instill confidence in them. Um, if I'm in a position, and I've done this before, if I'm in a position where I can advocate for that student, sometimes that's really what they want. They want someone to stand up for them, or to advocate for them, or to know that, hey, I hear what you're saying. I do care about this, and from whatever I can do, I will do. And whether that be, connecting them, let's say they need accommodations, like, then maybe they need to get connected to disability support services. Or maybe in the meantime, hey, this student is going through this, could you help them? Students have loss. They experience loss. They experience circumstances, unforeseen circumstances. A car's not working, a house fire, all types of things. So when these things happen, it can be hard sometimes to advocate for themselves, and they might need someone to say, hey, such and such is experiencing this. That's why they haven't been in touch, or that's why they're not coming to class, or that's why they're doing this. I also think, and this might be something we touch on later, but recognizing those signs, because when you're in the crisis itself, you might notice that your friend or this student has not been showing up to class, or has been more reserved. They're not talking as much. That's not like them. Things like that. Because I noticed that, even in myself, and in my friends, me and my friends have talked about this. We know something's wrong when you stop texting for 2 weeks, or we know something's wrong when, you know, you stop posting for a while, or I call you and, you know, you're a little bit quieter, or your responses are a little bit delayed, things to that nature. I have a rule, me and my friends have a rule now where it's like, we'll say, oh, hey, how you doing? And we're like, yeah, I'm doing fine. And then it'll be like, okay, now how are you really doing? And we try to do this as counseling friends. We try to do this consistently, because we know what we all are going through right now, and we know that everybody, especially since COVID, has been, you know, trying to stay above water. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think noticing those things and being able to let even our black males, especially our black males, know that, hey, this is a space where you can be real and
Mm-hmm.
express yourself, and it's okay if, you know, you don't have the answers, or you don't have to try to be strong or convince me that you're strong. I know you're strong, but that doesn't diminish that you're experiencing this right now, and that's the place we're trying to, you know, get to.
Exactly. I love that you said that. Like, just because you're experiencing an issue, and I think that's what hangs up a lot of black men, like you're a human being first,
Mhm.
before you're even a black man, you're a human
Right.
being.
Right.
And no problem. There's no problem that's a respecter of you being a black man. In
Hmm.
fact, you might encounter more
Right.
issues, stressors,
Hmm.
because you are a black man.
Hmm.
So to have the thought that, oh, I can do it, or oh, I'll just hold it in and go about my life.
Hmm.
No, we have to undo that thinking, or just
Hmm.
feeling like they can't be vulnerable to express themselves.
Hmm.
So with that, and I'm glad you and your friends are like, okay, yeah, you're doing good. Okay, but for real,
Hmm.
it takes that push, and I think it's
Hmm.
gonna take that push to make expression of emotions and verbalizing those emotions for Black men more acceptable and more normal, quote unquote, because to really push into that, and that's because they will tell you. I know my Black male friends, they come to me and they're like, hey, I know you're going to understand, but it's just because I'm a therapist. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And I'm a
Hmm.
Black woman. But
Hmm.
I want them to feel comfortable to talk to their friends, when they need to. I want them to feel comfortable to, like, if they're, like you said, there's been plenty of times that you've been not only the only male, but the only Black male. I
Hmm.
want them to have the confidence to say to their boss or to a professor, whoever, hey, like, this is what's going on. Can you work with me? Or, hey, I don't feel safe in this situation.
Hmm.
So how can you help me? And
Hmm.
so, and that's usually what it is, finding somebody that can help you.
Right.
And fortunately for my clients, their bosses really like them, but this isn't always the case.
Hmm.
Their boss is willing to help them in places where maybe I have one client in particular, their boss is a white female, but understands how he thinks.
Yeah.
So she has to be that buffer between him and communicating maybe with other people on the job that might not understand him or interact with him as much,
Yeah.
because she has a softer
Yeah.
presentation, so
Hmm.
being a Black male and then being a big Black male,
Hmm.
makes it even more hard to navigate. So
Hmm.
let's just say, how might you direct a Black male that maybe isn't as fortunate to have those supports in place, where he's experiencing that anxiety or feels like he doesn't have a voice?
Yeah, I am a big believer in um, creating those environments, you know, um, where we can be our authentic selves. And what I mean by that is, I think we should surround ourselves with people who bring our authentic selves, you know, out of us. And I think one thing that I feel all of those spaces that I've been in, after a while, you know, I feel like people would see past me being a black male and see me as Jason and for who I am, and for the spirit that I have, for my characteristics, for the things that I value. I and that's what I really want, for our students. That's what I want for the clients that I work with in the future. I want I want there to be a world where people aren't we're not so caught up in that and what you see on the outside. And I think that's probably the most frustrating part, is because those biases are so strong. You're not even giving me a chance to show you who I am and what I'm capable of. And there's been so many instances where people haven't thought I was smart because I was a bigger black male and an athlete. Um, and I think those are the things that might even frustrate our black males, as much or even more, because it's like, you know, I've worked hard too, and I've studied too, and I've gone through school too, and I've done these things too, and I know what I'm capable of. I know what I bring to the table. But I think for those people who are in positions of power, creating an environment where your black males feel safe to be themselves and get the same opportunities, I think that's what's really important. And um, that's what I've talked about in the platform that I have. That's what I spend a lot of time talking about, is how can we create that environment, because I think that's how, from a retention standpoint, that's how we keep black males, that's how we keep students in general, minority students in general at our university, is creating that environment where they feel safe, where they feel heard, where they feel valued, not just because they're black males and they're black women and they're Hispanic males and they're Hispanic women, but because we see them for who they are, for their unique self. And I would say, if you're not in that type of environment and there's a way you can get to that type of environment, that is what I would propose the most, because I feel life is too short to live in an environment, whether it be at home, whether it be at work, whether it be in your friendship spaces, where you can't be your authentic self, you can't express yourself, you can't experience emotion, you know, um, you can experience grief, you can't go through periods where you're low or you're high, or those are the things that are just a part of life. And I don't think it's fair or healthy for us to have to constantly suppress that. And so I've been in that situation before, where I've said I need to pull myself out of this situation because I've spent months or years, you know, unhappy or anxious or frustrated. And but I know, when you're inside of it, it's hard to see like what's causing this. It's hard to see that. That's why I really think that's the importance to me of counseling. Um, is having that, like, for me, I've been looking at PhD programs, and one of the things that I've been doing is looking for career, talking to a career counselor, talking to a director of McNair, and people who can see, when I tell you what I want to do with my career, what do you hear? Because for me, all I see is all the things I want to do, but I need someone to help me hone in of like what's right in front of me that I'm not seeing. And I think when we really, I've been in that position before where I've been feeling like an emotion about something, and finally, I talk to someone and they say, well, could it be this? Even if you're in that work environment, maybe it's not your whole work environment. Maybe it's one person that's making you feel that way. Or maybe it's something they said to you in a meeting, or how they treated you in a meeting or in front of other people, that made you feel some type of way, that hurt you, that you didn't even know it was bothering you, but it's been bothering you. And
Yeah.
so those are the things that I think is important, that like we have to be self-aware of, because if not, we'll sit with those feelings or with those moods or with those emotions and not know what to do with them, and not know how to, heal from those.
Definitely. So, Black men, like Jason said, and anybody, but Black men, since this is what this conversation is surrounding, if you don't feel like you have anybody, a therapist would be the first person you can go to, because one, we can't tell your business. Like, under our license, we're not allowed to share your business with nobody. Whatever you share with us has to stay with us. So there's that. So you can feel safe and secure. And to find somebody that understands your experience. So that may be another Black female or male therapist. I went to my white doctor a couple of days ago and expressed to him the concerns that Black women have with his ability to treat us. And he just was, I just can't believe, he was really just he couldn't understand, which I wasn't offended, because he's a white man. I couldn't expect for him to understand and say, you know what, that is a problem. That is something that I need to, he just was just so offended.
Yeah.
And so that is also the importance of having, us as African Americans really showing ourselves so people know we exist, so they can come to us. Because even though I'm not a Black male, I'm a Black person. And so when my Black males are telling me things, it can resonate with me. And I'm like, I understand that. Like, here's how, let's try to do it this way. Because like Jason said earlier, they respond to Black females similar. You're an angry Black woman if you are upset because you got penalized for something at the job, but your white counterpart, very same thing. And so, and we know that. And then, so we bring it to our boss's attention, and they're like, like, why are you so angry? Why are you being so mean? Why are you being so unreasonable? No, I'm saying that that's not fair, that she got a pardon, but I didn't. And I may even work harder than her, come to work on time more than she does. And she gets a pardon and I don't. So, starting with therapy, because all of your situations, we're covering real general aspects of the matter, but for your personal experience, for your individual environments that you're experiencing in your own life, you really do need your own therapist to help you navigate those things as it relates to you. And so find yourself a Black therapist that can help you navigate those areas and can help you see, like Jason said, see it in its entirety, and not invalidate your emotions, because a lot of times it is what you think, but let's see if there's another perspective to help you cope through what you're seeing.
That was exactly what I was going to mention. It's like coping, because these emotions that we're talking about, it's not like they're just going away. I feel like it builds up, and I feel like it leads to an explosion, or it leads to some behaviors that can be detrimental to Black males. And so just thinking about that aspect of it, like the coping aspect, I think that's really important. And I also think about like impulse. I think about impulse as well, because I think that is I can say is probably one of my own reactions to high anxiety, high stress. It's just the impulse to go, spend money that I don't have, or to, respond in ways that are not natural. Like I can imagine that that stress at work can highly impact, your behavior at home, with your family. And so those are the things that are like, just having that outlet. I mean, we talk about it a lot as far as like barbershop talk goes. And I would tell like my friends, my white counterparts, that, the Black barbershop is like the mecca, like in the sense of like what we talk about in there. And I got my hair cut in Birmingham, next to Green Acres, at Newbury for basically my whole life. And so I grew up in that environment from a little kid. My first haircut till probably when I was 23, 24, and got to be a part of those conversations. And, these are things that Black males do talk about. But it's like creating that space for it is so difficult. Like you will express this at the barbershop with 40 other men, but the idea of expressing this, with Dominique or with Shekinah or one of the great Yellowbird therapists or any therapist is just like baffling. And I'm like why? Like that's the
It's
hard
the
part
same
for me.
thing.
Yes. That's the hard part for me. And I've been in that space. Like I've been in the space where like I was going through something and my natural response was like, well, I want to figure it out. I want to get back in control. And then I might go talk to a therapist about it. But that's I understand the challenge. When I'm in the storm, then how I respond then for me feels natural. So I want to turn on my resilient self and I want to will myself through it. And if I'm more in control, then yeah, it might be easier for me to go talk to a therapist and say, hey, I was going through this. What do you think about that? But if I'm having panic attacks or if I'm have been feeling depressed or having symptoms of depression, or if I'm going through grief, you know, I think then that is where that true challenge comes in of like, I'm feeling this right now. What's stopping me from booking an appointment, or even going to someone that I trust who might give me the advice of you should book an appointment. You should go see this person or you should go see Yellowbird. Don't wait. Don't try to just sit in it. And that's what I would say to anyone. Even if making that appointment is too far of a step for you in that moment, please talk to someone and have an outlet and don't try to internalize it, because it's just not healthy long term.
Right. And even with, if you're like, oh, I want to reach out. I've had clients even here in the past week, and it hadn't been Black men, but I'm sure this could be possibly something Black men experience, where they reached out to us months ago, maybe a year ago, and they felt anxious about it. So they're just now reaching back out and saying, I wasn't ready then, but I'm ready now.
Right.
So you can still do that too.
Mm-hmm.
And here at Yellowbird, we try to make it easy for you to connect with us, so you don't have to say too much initially, and we kind of take the reins and guide you through the process until you feel more comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
I even have it so simple now where you can text the word new to our number. It'll ask you all the questions. When you feel ready, you answer them, and then we'll get you hooked up. Sometimes people don't want to really talk or do too much. They just want to get the help they need. So yeah, we have that available to you. I'll put it in the comments. But this is a good question someone asked. They said, in today's society, it seems that the Black male experience voice is often downplayed, dismissed, and ignored. Could this possibly lead to the increased rate of mental instability in the Black male? How can we highlight the Black male experience? How can we highlight the Black male experience, the Black male voice, so that people actually hear us, so that people actually respect what we have to say? I think once we know we are actually being heard, that we will seek more help.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll just say one way is doing things like this more regularly. But Jason, you tell me what your thoughts are.
Yes, I think that's a great question, great feedback, because I do think being taken serious is I would say not being taken serious is very detrimental. And I think anyone who's been in that environment or been in that space where they haven't been taken serious, where they felt their voice was ignored or not valued. Um, that's not a great feeling. And I think when you're, especially when you're in that space and you're like one of the only black males in that space, I think that can impact you in several ways. So I think one way that we can individually and collectively change that or begin to change that is, like we talked about earlier, finding ways to advocate for ourselves and figuring out what that looks like. And even if that answer is not easy, even that's something that we have to discuss and figure out, what does that look like. I think that's super important. And I think collectively, in whatever platforms, like you said, things like this, whatever platforms that we have, being able to bring awareness to things like this is super important. Having representation is super important. So when you have black males or you have allies in positions of power where they have impact on the culture of the place that you're in, I think they make a huge impact on things to that nature. I think when, myself, I'm lucky enough to be in a space where my voice is valued and heard. And so that instills confidence in me. But I utilize the platform that I have to further open doors for our black male students. And I think when you're in those type of environments, I think that's when you begin to look at those things with different perspectives. So I definitely think just like other things that we talk about. I know next month is specifically about black male mental health, but just like we talk about other things in society, culturally or socially, this is something I think we really, really need to continue to make sure it's a part of what we discuss and how we try to push forward, because I think a lot of people aren't being heard. And, when you talk about the suicide rate of black males, I think that's when you really see, like, okay, there's a real issue here. Regina King, her son, I was reading about that before we got started, and I was like, that particular situation, it's like things like that happen, and the world moves so quick that I feel like sometimes we don't stop and talk about those things and think about those things and how people are being impacted. And that's unfortunate. I think that's something that, with my work and my platform, that I want to continue with my students or with people when those things happen, come together and talk about, these things and say, like, hey, the work has to continue, because we don't want to see that. We don't want to become numb to these things. I think when we become numb, that also contributes to people feeling like nobody cares, or they're not being heard, or that they're not being seen.
Yeah. I think, just continuing, and, therapists watch these lives too. So doing groups, having more events for black males where they can feel comfortable and they know this is the space for me to be vulnerable. This is a space for me to talk openly. They'll come. They will. If you give them that opportunity, they will. It may be a matter of helping them to feel safe. But, us putting ourselves out there, that's kind of just what our job is as clinicians, to make sure we are putting the word out. But amongst yourselves, doing things like what Jason said, when your friends ask you, how you're really doing, telling them how you're really doing, it starts with small things like that. And as those things become more normal, then, it's going to become more accepted. We're going to learn how to communicate with each other, which will help us to learn how to communicate better with strangers or people maybe we're not as close to, like our bosses or leadership, that we may need to really say something to. Or, like I said, going to a therapist to help you figure that out, being able to at least come to a therapist to help you figure out a plan for your own personal life as to how you can assert yourself in a way to advocate for yourself and get your point across that needs to be heard. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is great. This was so great. Thank you so much, Jason, for coming on and talking with us about this. And we're gonna next month, June is Men's Health Month, so we are gonna be creating a whole series of different aspects of how to deal with men's mental health, and we definitely will highlight Black male mental health as we are talking through those different topics. And Jason will be doing a live, and then some of our other ones will be doing lives on different aspects of men's mental health, so that we can get the word out there that way. And that's just kind of the stuff we got to do in order to normalize it, and make it available for non-Black people to see and listen to these conversations and consider. I know my white doctor, while he was just so taken aback by me asking my questions, I could tell he was gonna be thinking about it. I had at least planted the seed, and I was so happy I asked, because I told him a lot of your other Black female patients are not going to ask you, and that's why. Mm-hmm. I felt comfortable and confident to say this is why they're not asking you, because they're scared because of that response right there. You have to help us to feel comfortable and understand where we're coming from. He basically told me my concerns. He said, you've been looking at too much internet. Are you serious, sir? Like, women who have actually had babies have told me these, like, no, it's not just too much internet. So, but I get why there's fear there. But I think if we continue to talk about it, maybe, somebody like my white male doctor will watch the live and consider it, and consider how their microaggressions and how their implicit bias affect how they come at us. Right. So that's the hope. Well, Jason, did you have any last comments before I let you go? This was really, really good. So thank you.
I just want to say thank you for utilizing your platform to talk about this and recognizing the importance of this. I think, things like this, when people catch a glimpse of this, or even when they see the flyer for it and say, like, wow, this is something that they value, that goes a long way. So just knowing that, hey, Yellowbird, values Black males and recognizes some of the challenges they have, that goes a long way. So I definitely appreciate that. And I hope for any Black males that come across this or who are working with Yellowbird, feel empowered by what we're doing and what they're capable of doing. And I hope that, we can open doors for people to push past things that have been holding them down for years and years. So I'm excited to continue in this work and hopefully, be impactful to someone.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jason. And we will see you again soon.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Dominique. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a good weekend.
All right. You too.
All right, guys. So yeah, this, we usually do our lives every Thursday evening at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is 9 p.m. Eastern, which is 6 p.m. Pacific. So you can catch us there. And all of this coming month in June for Men's Health Month, we'll be kind of digging into some of this stuff a little deeper. Some topics include men's, what does self-care look like for men? We'll talk about toxic masculinity, the scientific reasonings for why males need therapy. So things like that you men can relate to in order to help you understand and educate yourself on the reasons that help is important for your health in general. Help is important for your health in general, your physical and mental health, and your physical and mental health are attached. So if you're, feeling distressed in your mind, it's going to come in your body and vice versa. So definitely join us every Thursday. And you want to go to yellowbirdcounseling.com so you'll know when we do the $100 Cash App giveaways. And I hope that we'll have some male winners this month. So males, wordcounseling.com. Subscribe to our newsletter so that you'll not only know the live topics that we'll be doing, but you'll know when we do those giveaways, and you'll know how to be eligible to win. And I would like for 2 different men to be able to win this month in honor of Men's Health Month. But until next time, we will see you soon. Stay safe and enjoy your holiday weekend.